mean, the story of how I found my guru is pretty interesting. And I'll give you the short, so if we want to go into it. But, like, I was in India training classical Indian dance, which is like boot camp where you also have to look beautiful. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, my teacher, man, she looks otherworldly. Like, there's just...
In what way?
You see her and there's just something, you're like, you look divine. Mm. Like, she has this different bhava, we call it, this different, like, aura. And I overheard her talking about her guru to another student and this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, right? Have you read this book?
I have.
So I get this book, and then I read it, I started praying to Yogananda. I just felt this, like, deep devotion, like I believe I was a devotee of his in another life. And, like, so devoutly every day for 6 months, like, without fail, at my altar, praying. And then, long story short, and I can add more details, but I'm studying Ayurvedic medicine at the Ayurvedic Institute in Albuquerque, and I'm in the parking lot of Natural Fucking Grocers at 1 p.m. getting lunch, and I open my email, and it's this message, I get chills, from my dance teacher. And she was like, Divine Amaya, last night at midnight on the full moon of Kali, I got a phone call, and on the other end was the thunderous laughter of my guru. And in this call, he revealed to me that he is your Sat Guru, your true spiritual teacher for this lifetime. And I just broke down. Like, to have so sincerely prayed for that, to have so sincerely desired that, and then to have it, like, to actually be chosen by the master. It was like all the dreams at once.
And then what? It's like drop everything, move to India?
No, I mean, he was living in Santa Barbara.
Oh,
so
cool. That's a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, it was more convenient, but it was like those kinds of things. I would love to, like, just, the power of prayer when it's so sincere and you're putting in the reps, whether it's the reps of meditation, whether it's the reps of swinging your weapon, your mace, like how that does yield fruit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's like our most powerful superpower that everybody has access to.
Yeah.
And yet still so many people don't access it.
Yes.
Even myself, it's so easy to get caught up in the momentum and flow in life, and it's hard to take the time and just connect to that something greater.
I was studying with this master yesterday. I was part of this 4-hour-long ceremony, and he was talking about how deities, like these energetic forces that you can tap into, right? Like Ganesh is the power of removing obstacles, but it's not like an actual elephant-headed being. That's the representation. But an elephant can, like, is a big ass motherfucker, right? Like it can get through any obstacle. And how sound is the deity. So when you chant mantra, right, mantra, you're actually invoking that energy and becoming it, right? Like, it's this science of making deity and God not something outside of you, but, like, unlocking that potency within.
I like how you say it's not the actual elephant, but what it is a pattern. It's a recognized pattern. It's like there is this reoccurring energetic signature which can be called upon, and what it does is how it's identifiable is that through its actions of removing obstacles. And then they call that Ganesh, and they put an image around it to personify it so that they can kind of draw upon it and recognize it when it comes. It's like you put a mask on top of these invisible forces that move through you so that you can see them a little bit easier and distinguish them from the storm.
Yes.
And yeah, that's another form. I mean, that's really all we are, is pattern recognition and pattern manipulation beings.
Totally. And when you think about like early martial training, where did this happen?
probably people were fighting each other a lot and noticing different patterns of what worked.
And in nature, right? Like the point is that it wasn't in these like sterile, environments with mirrors and all this stuff. It's like you're training, and there might actually be elephants, or there might actually be these animals, and that's right how animal forms developed, right? And recognition of the power that this archetype, this animal holds, right? And bringing that into the martial world, the martial practice.
I think humans might be the only animal that look at other animals and then be like, I'm going to move like that animal and see what that feels like.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool that we can embody the pattern of different beings that we witness. Like we can look at a cat and be like, I want to draw on that big cat energy, or a gorilla, and kind of like assume the posture that's more represented in that specific being. And yes, I kind of switch between these landmarks of tensional engagement, and in holding ourselves kind of draw on some energetic similarity with the thing that holds itself that same way.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's juicy.
Remember this quote from Tara Branch that always stuck with me, where she said, the origin of all prayer comes from like two binary polarities within us. It's either please, like please show me the way, please give me the guidance, please lend me the strength, please don't leave me, or it's thank you. It's like, thank you for this journey, thank you for where I've landed, thank you for the lessons I had to, and those are like two binary states that exist within all of us. Talking about how prayer is shared by every human being, those two states are shared by every human being. It's kind of our, like, if you strip away all the layers of thought and process, the basic of our mind in terms of its seeking is, in story creation, is like a please and a thank you. Please and a thank you.
Absolutely. Well, for me personally, I do think it's both. I think there are times in sadhana, right, the Sanskrit word for spiritual practice, where I come with that please, like please give me, because I am your child. Like you approach the deity, the energetic force, differently depending on what you're working with. But for many of them, it's like, I'm your child, take care of me. Like you're supposed to take care of me, please, right? Like this real acknowledgement of my humanness and of my desire to receive divine guidance. Because when you come with humility, like who do you want to help? The person that's like, oh my gosh, please, like you have so much wisdom, I would love to receive that from you, thank you, right? Yeah. Or are you like, is it like the needy bitchy person, like, no,
come on, help me, I really want help, like I'm not gonna do any of the work myself, but like, could you just do it for me?
Yeah.
Wow, when you think about God as a coach, that's really interesting. It's like, I totally would want to be there and support the person who's coming with humility and coming from that that humbled place. How often do you pray to specific patterns, faces, representations, deities, and how often do you pray to like the one, if there is a one in your conception?
Yeah, I work with different archetypes because I find that to be useful in terms of focus of energy, and I can really relate. Like I've done all kinds of worship, from Divine Mother to Lord Shiva, and they each have their own energy. Like the Divine Mother I worship is fierce, and she's like, she carries.
I can see that in you.
It's a good story, actually. Like when I started studying with my spiritual master, I thought I was going to do Kriya Yoga, which is what Yogananda does, right? And I was all excited, and I was like, I'm going to get up at 3 a.m. every day and do this practice for 3 hours. And he looked at me and laughed, and he was like, no, you're Devi Durga. Now, Durga is the one who sits on a tiger and has 8 arms, each of which has a weapon that was gifted to her from one of the gods. Because in this great battle, it was said no man or god could slay these fierce demons, but the goddess. Now she could take care of business, right? So that's a form I really, really relate to, like, because I have that ferocity.
I mean, that's absolutely hilarious knowing you. Because you're like wielding kali sticks and maces and swords and practicing capoeira, and to think you're like going to just, and your guru is like, pick this stick up, start swinging.
Yeah, like literally one of the things he said to me, he was like, oh, I see you swinging things over your head, you know?
Nailed it. Kind of called it on that one. Yeah.
Totally did.
Yeah.
So I love working with forms like that. And then I've done a lot of work with Ganesh, but I love elephants. So for me, there's this natural bhakti, and I have so much reverence for the natural world, and elephants in particular carrying tradition, right? Like they learn ancestrally. The grandmothers are the matriarchs of the family, and teaching, the crew, teaching the family how to do things. And that's something that I find very supportive in prayer, when I can find a personal resonance. Some people may find resonance with the one consciousness.
So it's really interesting you talk about resonance. That reminds me of something I was thinking earlier. You were talking about Ganesh as not being an elephant, but being a representation of a particular pattern, right? And I don't know if you've ever considered Pan, the god of sound and resonance, but people kind of interpret him as like a being, like this little goat creature that plays the
flute, right?
But really it's not that. It's a representation of resonance itself. Because if you think of audio, like you're panning it side to side, right? The spatiality of audio, we call it panning. Why is it called panning? Because pan is that eternal vibration. And it's animalistic because it connects us to nature. That reverberation is our connection to this greater animalistic part of ourself. And that's why he has that goat representation. But again, when you think about it as like this larger idea, this larger recognition, as opposed to like a little goat creature, you're like, holy shit, like Pan is in every word that I speak, every sound that we hear, the tingling and vibrations of our hands, this invisible force field of resonance that connects us. And to think they're like, that is this, that's how we'll recognize and talk about it. And to think like that was what was worshipped, and then they kind of like dismiss that as like, oh, this nature pagan loving, and it's like, no.
Like, who's they? Let's just call that for what it is. Who's they?
I'm not sure. I know that there is like a puritanical kind of tearing away from the pagan, and this is all very vague in my head, but it was like a pagan worshiping of Pan, which was this resonant connection with everything, the universe. And then this puritanical conception of like almost about, it's not about here, but it's about out there. And those two are in opposition. It's like this idea that we need to disregard this earthly vibrational plane because this is just the training ground for something greater beyond. And we can come back home to that resonance in ourselves and hold on to something that might be greater beyond at the same time. Like those two ideas that seem in opposition are actually part of one larger continuum, and we can embody both ends of the spectrum, the sky and the earth. A lot of times people think about like we have to go back to the ground and the roots, but also we are the sky and the heavens, and we can embody everything in between. There's a lot of emphasis on like the direction of coming down, because I think it's a response to that puritanical like program that kind of came in pattern that kind of overtook us and said like, disregard the body, disregard this human life. So now we're like reversing that and trying to like anchor back in. But I also think there's something to that greater than us self, that like one God above all of the so that's an interesting relationship. That when I pray, I tend to pray to something nameless. It's like it doesn't have a face for me. But I would love to start praying more to specific energies and specific representations. So thank you for sparking that in me.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's interesting when we think about like the influence of the church, because that's the they I think of, right? Which puts things into hierarchy, right? That's what it's all about. It's you can't access this unless you go through our hierarchical system.
You hear so many miraculous tales, right? People manifesting things out of thin air, people able to, like you say, just like know things that they have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
How much of that did you witness firsthand?
Well, I haven't seen most of that kind of thing firsthand because one, you know, most teachers who achieve those things, it's not a parlor trick, right? Like they actually, they're dealing with higher level beings who also often get upset if you show. And I think part of why it can be harder to witness is one, the depth of cultivation that's necessary to achieve control of an element. Like, I don't even know how to fathom that, right? But that's what's happening. And people are irresponsible. You know, people are irresponsible with power and privilege. And so I think that's part of the vetting process that you see with like the Taoist wizards and these martial lineages, where I don't doubt that there are still people out there who can jump onto a roof that's 20 feet high. I don't doubt there are people who have abilities like we see in, you know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I just want one person to do it in front of a camera, like impossible to I just want to see like one miracle that I can just be like, okay, now I can train for the rest of my lifetime, knowing that it's possible. It's you know, it's kind of a sad thought to think that there might be miracles and magic out there in the world, and I might go through my whole life with, you know, being surrounded by people who do miraculous things but still never being fully convinced. Because I do have an internal skepticism with me, and I've witnessed miracles firsthand. I've seen people heal, I've seen release, I've had experiences I can't explain, and still there's a skeptical part of my brain that's just won't let go of wondering if I'm just imagining it all. And I would love to have that like I look for, and there's stories of like Ram Dass when he meets his guru, like that skeptical part of his brain just getting swept away by the immensity of the energy of this being. And I would love to just, if I could have one prayer in my life, is I would love to just experience something that completely wipes away all my skepticism to the point that I can my brain can no longer deny that magic is real and possible and miracles exist. So I'm gonna keep chasing that, and hopefully one day, you know. But I also feel like the gods won't give it to me because I want it so bad.
But I think,
you know?
yes, and I think that the real opportunity is to recognize that even this conversation is actually a miracle. Like when you can anchor in the remembrance that you are this conglomeration of trillions of cells.
That I can do, yeah.
Many of which are not you, coming together in some kind of cohesive fashion to create an opportunity for discourse with another human being. Or like even the magic of eating a banana and somehow it becomes a part of you. Yeah. And then the parts of you that it shouldn't be becoming, it comes out of you, right? When you can really like tune in to the miracle of the mundane, how could you doubt any of these greater miracles?
I can definitely tap into that frequency. I can see through that lens, and I wish I could remember that more, and I wish I could stay in that place. As much as it tends to come in waves and then slip away, I would love to create a world where we're all constantly pointing each other back to that. You know, that would be the society I want to live in, where everyone's like, you know, you come to someone with I'm having a bad day, and it's just like, yeah, remember the miracle of that. And sometimes people don't want to hear that.
It's true. It's true. No, it is a practice, though, and I think you hit on something very important, because we surround ourselves with the people who do remind us of those truths. Because it's like, it's very addictive to chase the big events, the big masters, the big miracles.
I want to be the very best that no one ever was, Amaya.
You already are.
It's a Pokemon reference, if you didn't catch that.
And just pausing along the way. Like, really, I mean, I remember feeling this way from a very young age.
Yeah.
Like, looking at a table or a blade of grass and just like, this is so bizarre.
I used to get that in like water drop reflections.
Oh my God.
Reflections and water drops would pull me into that sometimes. If you just like really like start looking closer and you're like, oh my God, what is the universe? And that would happen before I had any conception of what was going on in my brain. But I remember those, bring back like the water coming down a window on a rainy day.
Yeah, like my tattoos. You know, I remember we had this book when I was 5 years old, and it was all about how we're created from stardust, like from the explosion of stars creating elements. And I vividly remember this, like riding my little tricycle around the living room, and I was like, oh my God, I'm stardust.
And maybe that's why we're not allowed to see the miracles, because if we saw them, we just take them for granted. So we gotta keep something in the quiver to surprise you. Like, we're giving you bananas, and you're just looking at it like it's nothing. You don't get to see this except for maybe once in your life, so you find it special.
Maybe, right?
I approve of that management.
But it is all, the thing is, it's all a game. It's all a Leela, right?
Yeah.
Like the divine consciousness, whatever name you want to give it, he, she, they, they're having fun being awake, and then they're having fun in the longing of that awakening. Like, that's part of the path too, is that the desire, right? And it can be kind of juicy to long for something, to strive for something, because how boring is it if things come like this? Like, what are the things you love to do that are super fucking easy that you're trying to master?
Yeah, I mean, we always got to level up to fight the next boss. It's like the game is no fun once you have cheat codes. We need the we need the resistance to battle against. That's what gives it a purpose. That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, because I've built my whole life around trying to get the high score.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, being the hero of your own journey. So it's cool to hear that there are forces like this that exist and still magic in this world, because that's what keeps us questing, I think. It's like you're stuck in the land of the mundane, and you hear stories of a wizard somewhere else. You're like, all right, I will go on this journey to try to find this magic out there. So, and with the hope of bringing something back and sharing something and being able to look at the world that you came from with fresh eyes.
Yes, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And from a space of really like just total curiosity, total wonderment, and total non-attachment. Like, if you can carry those three qualities with you, everything transforms, right? Because suffering comes from the attachment to the outcome. Suffering comes from the limitation, the identity that you've given yourself, and in pain.
Yeah. Like,
pain doesn't have to be suffering. Things can hurt and be hard and still produce joy, which anybody who's interested in martial training understands.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, getting punched in the face can be one of the most fulfilling experiences you have in your life.
There you go.
And, people who haven't done it just wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes you step in and get hit in the face and you're like, wow, I really needed that. And if that's not a metaphor for life, I don't know what is.
I have a question for you, though.
Yes.
What do you think would happen if you met the miracle maker? Like, what would that give you that you don't already have?
I think it would validate me in a very deep way. Mm. It would validate a lot of where my time and energy has gone, a lot of where my dreams have focused around, because like, I'm a very magically oriented person. Like, I've always, it's so ingrained in my like subconscious to want to have superpowers.
Me too.
Know? person who somehow like breaks through to something abnormal and somehow and understanding that comes with a responsibility, and that comes with a need to protect and use. With great power comes great responsibility.
Truth.
But knowing that at least exists out there would be such fuel for me. I feel like I could do, and I have a lot of fuel in me already, but I can only imagine the limits that I would be able to break through if I just saw what was possible on the other side. And it's like, I can see that in great martial artists. Or like the people I train with. When I train with complete legends who are just like amazing at what they do, that makes me want to dedicate the hours to get to some semblance of what they've achieved. And I think it would be the same thing with Matt. Like if I saw Matt, I would be willing to sit there for 8 hours a day and meditate. If like that's what it took. If I could just see that like there is something on the other side. And I think it would redirect me. Right? Because my direction is very much in what I know and I trust currently. And it's hard to trust in something that you're not certain of.
But when you say know and trust, do you mean something that you know how to generate results in versus something that you're unclear, if I do this, will I get a result?
Yeah. Know how to generate results in. And it's interesting because I do already think I'm doing what I know I should be doing in a lot of regards. So maybe I don't need the distraction of like spending the 8 hours meditating to master superpowers, because it's like I'm supposed to be doing this. And it's weird because I have developed very interesting, unusual abilities. And, in India they call these like siddhis, or like different forms of clairvoyance, clairsentience. Mine is like, I can, and this has come from hours of practice, is when I'm working with clients, I can start to feel what their body feels in my body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is like, I wouldn't believe in that except for I experience it daily when I'm working with people, and it comes from, and I think what helps is I can intellectualize it. It's like I can explain it with like mirror neurons and like, so when I can and I'm really good at intellectualizing magic. I can intellectualize deities and demons and how energy works. I can, if I can wrap an intellectual framework around it, my mind is much more willing to dive into it deeply. But that's one of my biggest keys, has been just getting that out of the way and giving myself the permission to imagine. Like, what if, like, just it doesn't even need to be real, but let's just pretend for this moment now. And that's been some of my most miraculous, magical experiences have happened when I've just given myself that permission. And it's like, it's hard to maintain it. I have to keep saying, like, just, it's okay. Remember, like, continually, and then like little cracks open up. But if that door was to fully stay open, and then there's people who go too far. We all know, like, the person who's lost in Sirius 9 and they're homeless on the street. Like,
but that's like that's a different kind of, that's different.
Please identify the differentiation. Where does the line draw there? Because it's curious to me.
So in Jyotish, right, in Vedic astrology, for instance, we can look at people's charts and see certain tendencies. Like, you can see certain combinations that show someone's being harassed by spirits, right? Somebody's got them, following them around. And that's what most of those people you see have, who are out there like crazy yelling on the street. There are beings that they're interacting with, harassing them. And there's also a thin ego veil, right? You have to have a strong enough sense of self, knowing that you can keep other out, because if you feel uncertain of that, it's very fucking stressful. Like, if you've ever had a psychedelic experience where it starts to like kind of spiral to a place you're not controlling, and you're like, fuck, like, I don't know what to do.
Falling down into the hell frequency.
Totally.
One slip of thought away. It's like you can be in heaven and then right here. Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There is the force, and then there's the identification of it.
You're such a wizard.
Yeah.
By the way, like, I will be so excited for you for the day when you like dedicate yourself fully to fucking magic practices, because I have zero doubt in my mind that you could attain some dope shit.
Well, right now I'm learning tutting, which I think is going to really unlock something for me.
Yeah.
Like if I just master these hand signs and get fluid enough, and it's very much a form of flow because I know what happens with the mace. Like I can already tap into some magic there.
Yeah.
There's something about the hands. Talk to me about hands, Amaya. What's going on with these things? Like what's?
I mean, they're hasta. They're related to your heart, right? The connection of the hands and the heart go together. And this is very interesting. So in Samkhya philosophy, which is one of these foundational kind of tenets from India, each of the elements is connected to an organ and an organ action, right? So what do the eyes allow you to do?
See.
Which allows you to do what?
Map the world around you?
Walk.
Yes.
Right? Because if you can't see, how do you move?
Yes.
So the hands, like grasping, touching, that's connected to the heart, which is from the Vedic system and these classical yogic standpoints, this is the seat of your mind, right? Not this. And so that makes the hands an extension of your heart.
The hands are definitely an extension, right? They are like our will extended into being, the way that we grab, interact, create, manipulate.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting that the heart is associated with love. It's like that connection is kind of just accepted around the world. It's like the heart is love, but it's like okay, love is here.
But this is here because the seat of your soul is like in your heart. Yeah. It's like nestled. Your soul sits next to your sinoatrial node. Now, I have not perceived this myself, but I was taught this like from my spiritual masters who have experienced it and like have the power of concentration and awareness and achieve those deep states where they can understand those things. And that's what they're trying to teach all of us. Like how to do that.
It's like I can understand a lot of the like chakra mappings. Like it makes sense to me that vision is here because when we close our eyes and we envision like a purple elephant, it's I can grab it. It's right here, right? It's not over there, right? So like vision makes sense. The root, sexual energy makes sense. Solar plexus, organs, energy, that makes sense. The throat, expression makes sense. And then like somehow love is located here. And I haven't really like experienced that myself. Like I've felt states of love, but it's never really, maybe for like moments, but I haven't really dropped into that fully where I'm like, all right, the love is, it's like it's right here, if I could point to it. You know, like I feel love, but it feels almost like externalized. It's like I feel love for that thing over there. It's not often that I notice that the love is located in that particular place, but yet I completely trust that it is because it seems to be universally agreed upon.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel that like as you were saying that, you know, I was bringing my awareness in, and if I really follow it back, I can almost feel it coming from 2 points. Like one from my spine, which is of course where the chakra is housed subtly, but that it emanates like a pedal forward. Like I've never felt love in my butthole.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a great shit, but that's different.
I can see it. It makes sense. But it's like, where is rage located? Like, rage doesn't have a location. Rage is very more universally distributed. And happiness also doesn't have a location. Happiness is very, like, rage is, it's like, it has different orientations. Like, it shows up in the hands.
It does, but actually what it is a state of stopping energy so that force is built up.
Yeah.
That's what rage is. It's like, that's why you clench, because you're actually blocking energy flow, much like if you have a hose and you plug the end, but you turn it up real high, you know, it's going to thrash around. It
wants to move through you. It wants to be brought into action. Yeah.
And rage is something that's associated with boundaries, with safety, oftentimes when it's a healthy, structured kind of form, right? Because there's healthy anger, healthy times for rage to come forward. So it's a closing so that pressure builds up.
But it's not like rage is in the hands. It's not like rage is located here.
No, but it's in your whole body. Like in Ayurveda, we say the pathway of the mind is the whole physical organism.
But isn't it interesting how love as a state of being, I think is the only state of being that we localize to a specific spot. Like we don't say, I mean, happiness is kind of in the mouth, I guess. Like we kind of smile, like we associate that in the eyes. But it's also, it's everywhere. It's like we are happy in our toes. Happy from my fingers to my toes. But we can be filled with love.
Yeah.
But there's not an organ that we associate with happiness. We don't send each other spleens for like, I'm so happy. Like, but we send each other hearts for love.
Well, I mean, so from the Ayurvedic standpoint, each organ does have its own emotion.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the spleen, when not healthy, is associated with hate. The liver, when not healthy, is associated with anger. And the lungs are associated with grief.
But none of these have an emoji. There's no spleen cartoon emoji that we send to represent hate.
There might be some Ayurveda nerd somewhere is doing that.
Yeah,
but actually, I mean, like anger is considered a pathology in Ayurvedic medicine.
Interesting.
Yeah, so actually they're all signatures. And this is like, that initial discussion of patterns and archetypes, like all of these emotions do have a physical correspondence in both Ayurvedic medicine and classical Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. Yeah.
And I'm very fascinated by how it shows up in the way that we hold ourselves, like our postural configurations.
Your shape.
The way that we shape ourselves when we're sad or when we're proud. I'm really fascinated by that because I think there's an opportunity to reorient who you want to be and how you want to feel through the way that you hold yourself in space.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. I mean, I was working with a client the other day, and she sits like this all the time.
I wonder how she's feeling. Probably really closed off in her heart. Yeah. Very, very, a lot of unconscious stuff in the back.
Oh yeah,
we explore.
And we know what it all is. I mean, we've been exploring it, but it's like when you hold a certain shape for safety.
Should have her lay down, put 2 kettlebells on her chest, and keep it there for like 10 minutes. And just open that up. I do that with people. It works really well. When they're congested in the chest, just like let that rest and let that melt and let that open. And it's amazing how when you open up your shoulder blades and you physically open up your posture in here, you start to open yourself up to love more. Because it's not just the organ of the heart. I think we've adapted that because it's like close, but it's actually like in the center, right? It's like more in our openness of our chest, right? It's like as the chest and shoulders open, the heart and love opens. And as the chest and shoulders close, we like kind of protect and armor.
Yeah. It's the receptivity to life.
Yeah.
Right? And connection.
It's also a very vital organ. So it's like when we expose our heart, we're being vulnerable, literally, to someone stabbing us in the heart.
Yes.
If we're like this, we're a little bit more covered up and protected and shelled up.
And it's interesting too, like how the breath patterns change in those different states.
Welcome to bpeakxp.com, your source for the most potent and distilled transformational tools in the world.